with high achievers who also have like that sensitivity, that empathy, right? They tend to fall into those, perfectionism and overworking and people pleasing and feeling unworthy, imposter syndrome. Just that trap is just right there waiting for them. And there's really some things that can be done to avoid that.
All right. Welcome to the Alliance Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nikhil Sharma, and I'm so grateful to have you guys back with us today. In today's topic, we're going to be talking about burnouts and how you can see if you're in burnout, the signs and symptoms, and what you can do to help recover from burnout, heal from it, and then use that as an empowerment to keep going in your personal growth journey. Joining me as always as my co-host and my soul brother, Kevin Drummond, who is a growth and mindset expert. What's up, bro? How are you, man?
How y'all doing? Excited to talk about this much needed topic.
Right on. And today, our guest is Monica Helvey, who is a licensed therapist and a burnout recovery expert. Welcome, Monica.
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah. I'm excited to have you here today. All right. Well, look, burnout is something that is near and dear to my heart, specifically. I know that I've gone through that. Being a physician, I had to be thrusted into a role, especially during COVID, where it was like all hands were on deck. We were experiencing things that were happening in this world that had never happened before. And quite frankly, I was not fully prepared to handle that. Growing up, we aren't really taught mechanisms of how to become like self-aware. We're not really taught mechanisms on how to become mindful. And, we just kind of go through life and just keep rolling with the punches, but never sit down to understand like, hey, there's times where I need to have rest. And especially in the medical field, it's really interesting. We're not taught any kind of self-care, and we deal with so much like death and dying and a very hectic and fast-paced life that, it's something that I feel needs to be discussed, but hasn't been. And so what happened with me was basically that, you get into an adverse situation where the environment itself is very hectic. You don't have a foundation that is strong, that is based upon understanding what you need to be able to be balanced. And then you add to that a really chaotic or unexpected event like COVID. And that is a recipe for disaster and burnout.
Absolutely. And I think that's why we're seeing record numbers of healthcare professionals exiting the field and trying to do something else. Like it's just record numbers.
Yeah. That's essentially what had happened to me, and I was like, I always realized though that I wanted to become a doctor, or I wanted to actually, let me reframe that. I wanted to help individuals. And when you're growing up, at least in a South Asian household, that means becoming a doctor. There's no other avenue.
There's no other way.
Become like a psychologist, or I can't like just become, just jump into like philanthropy and do those types of things. No, like it has to be becoming a physician. And I think this is a core part or a foundational part of how burnout occurs, right? And you can tell me if I'm wrong, Monica. It's that you're in a field that is no longer resonating with what you are truly trying to accomplish and who you are right now. Because who I was when I was 25 years old, and I would even become a doctor, by the time I turned 35, I realized that this specific way of healing someone no longer resonates.
Yes. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It's this misalignment between what you value and what's meaningful to you and the actual work that you're doing, right? Like when there's that misalignment between your output and what you desire to be doing, it forces us to live in this tension, right? This anything in our system, when we're structurally misaligned, there's inflammation, there's tension, there's a reaction in our system to that. And I think, again, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, we experience that fracture, that misalignment.
I think you just described society.
Like, it makes complete sense. Because No one ever told me that. I never knew that you had to be fulfilled. And people say it all the time, do what you love, never work a day of your life. But they didn't, explain that when you don't do what you love, you'll end up burning out. You'll end up like being in this constant state of fight or flight. And I didn't even know what burnout was, even though I was living it, most of my life. Because when you grow up in survival mode, you get used to it. Especially like if you're in Nick, me and you like here, like if you're always trying to like perform, especially like you have demanding parents, like you can't get anything less than an A. Like you're constantly trying to achieve. So you're always used to that pressure. So when you're in a state of fight or flight, it's not saying, "Oh, I'm burning out," because we've always been like this. Like this is my norm. We've normalized chaos, like Nick said earlier. So yeah, if we could just spread this message, I think we could really, change some people's lives for sure.
Kevin, I love what you're sharing because I think for so many people, like you said, in society in general, we're living in this functional disconnection where we're operating, but we are so severely disconnected from ourselves that we can't even sense that we're disconnected from ourselves, right?
Exactly.
It's the analogy I give is like when you are like a chef or you're a waitress and you're working around hot plates, right? Like you can become so comfortable with the heat that comes from the plate that you don't even realize that the plate's hot, right? Like how many times have you sat at a restaurant and the waitress puts the food down and goes, careful, that plate's hot. She's just touching it with her bare hands, right? Like it's because there's like this numbness that we can become accustomed to and tolerant of. And I think that that is what is driving so many people in society to being functionally burnt out.
And I really agree with you're saying there, Kevin, Monica. And the thing is like, it is, for me, it was indoctrinated into me at a young age. Like, oh, that's just a part of life. Like, you got to just tough it out. Like, you have to just, be a man. You don't worry about, like, why are you trying to rest for? Why do you need to do this? Anything like that has to do with your emotional or physical well being. It was almost trained to us to ignore that, to ignore our intuition, right? When it's telling us, like, hey, something doesn't seem aligned here. But, oh, it's okay because that's how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be misaligned, right? Like we've been taught by society, we've been taught by our parents that misalignment is okay. And what you're feeling, it's fine, it's normal. But the thing is, it's not normal, right? Like it's just absolutely not. And you can only fake it till you make it for so long. And then you crash and burn. See, sometimes I didn't even realize that I was on the burnout train, right? Like how do people like understand that, hey, you've now boarded the burnout train and your next exit is a fall off the cliff.
It's inevitable, right? It's inevitable. We just don't even realize it because we're actually, through our conditioning, through our societal expectations, we are conditioned to not pay attention to our own needs, our own wants, our own desires. We're not taught to ask questions about what do I really want? What is it like? What feels like it lights my soul up? Like we're not really trained to tune into that. We're trained like, where are you going to be the most successful? Where are you going to get the most applause for it? Where are you going to, climb the ladder to get the biggest paycheck? Whatever. Like we're really taught to look for those things versus our own sense of self.
So that's exactly right. We have been conditioned by society, by our parents, to be and act a certain way. And that programming started the day we left our womb. That's the day we lost our empowerment. And we've had to basically be in survival mode the whole time. And that's how our personalities have developed. Our personalities of who we are right now is just who we were in order to survive our upbringing. Again, we're not really aware of when we're on this train and like the signs and symptoms of burnout. And so, can you just tell us a little bit, Monica, about what those signs and symptoms are that our viewers and people who are listening out there can start noticing about themselves, and then some techniques to maybe pick up those signs and symptoms that has helped some of your patients understand that, hey, I'm in a burnout phase.
Yeah, so certainly there's so many different ways that it can show up. It could show up emotionally, mentally, physically, and even spiritually, these signs and symptoms of burnout. Okay. So I tend to like to share the ones that are less identifiable because like when you have compassion fatigue and you are like cynical at work. That seems like a pretty obvious sign of burnout. Maybe it's not, but I tend to want to focus on the ones that people might miss because it's so subtle. So always feeling overwhelmed, busy, like a sense of urgency, go, 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 have to rush. That is actually a sign that you are living in fight or flight and potentially driving on that train towards the edge of the cliff, like towards burnout. Feeling shame or guilt about never getting enough done or not feeling like the work that you're doing is good enough, like feeling the sense of inadequacy, like it's not at a place where I can present this yet, or it still needs some tweaking, right? Like this feeling like there's just it's never good enough, or I'm never getting enough done to have a sense of like relief or accomplishment, or a sense of like the work that I've done and accomplished today is meaningful and I'm proud of it, right? Which is so common in healthcare, right? Because there's just this never ending flood of people coming in and out. And so I think, again, that's contributing to the record numbers of folks feeling like my patients are getting better. What am I doing? I don't feel like I'm effective in what I'm doing. It's not good enough. I'm not doing enough. I'm not helping enough, right? So to kind of share back to your story earlier, also struggling to switch off from work. So like checking emails on your phone, even though you're not at work anymore, you're logged off for the weekend and you're still calling into the office to make sure everything's going okay, right? Like the difficulty switching off from work. You might even be like out and about with your partner or with your kids, and you're finding yourself like thinking about work, thinking about the projects, thinking about the unfinished tasks or the things that you want to do. One of the things that's like people don't really recognize with burnout is that you can love your job and still burn out. And sometimes it's the folks who love and are so passionate about their work that miss it, right? Like they miss the fact that they're on the train. And it's not necessarily their reasons for burning out isn't necessarily because they're misaligned with the outcomes of the work. They can love what they do and burn out because they're so passionate about it that they don't set and hold boundaries for themselves. They fall into the trap of overworking and really caring so much about the outcomes of what they're doing or the work that they're in that they're not taking care of themselves. They just, again, they start to neglect themselves. And it's coming from a place of love and good intentions, but they can still accidentally jump on that train. And another one is, again, just physical sensations. So holding your breath, noticing like IBS issues, stomach pain, anxiety, muscle tension, jaw pain, hormone imbalances, autoimmune flare-ups. A lot of those physical symptoms are, again, your body's way of trying to like ring the alarm bell that something is chronically misaligned. When we're living in chronic fight or flight, we burn through a lot of our testosterone because it's a survival mode. Like we just burn through our cortisol is really high when we're in fight or flight, and our testosterone gets burnt up. So especially for men, a lot of the times they have low testosterone when they come to see me, and they're presenting very angry to their partner and to their loved ones, but actually it's that they have low T.
Think about that. So when we're in constant fight or flight, yeah, our cortisol levels get really high, and then we end up depleting our like low testosterone. Then our sexual drive is very low, and then we have all these issues at home in the bedroom, and then that starts setting off that cycle to keep repeating itself. And you're going to work, you're angry because you're not doing well in the bedroom, and then you're projecting on all your coworkers or your patients or everyone around you, and it's this cycle. It's just going and going, and it's about like putting a stop to the cycle, getting off on that exit when you're seeing that some of these signs are appearing with you, And I think burnout, and it does differ for each individual, but I feel like, I'm thinking about myself, and I'm a very empathic individual, and I care, and I'm very sensitive, and so when you're this type of individual, you almost are ingrained to want to help other people. And what I realized about myself was that I was a people pleaser, and I wanted to feel like I belong. So there was some imposter syndrome that I was having, and I felt like I needed to like overwork myself to feel like I'm worthy enough to be in the position that I'm holding right now. Right. So
that's so common with high achievers who also have like that sensitivity, that empathy, right? they tend to fall into those, perfectionism and overworking and people pleasing and feeling unworthy, imposter syndrome. Just that trap is just right there waiting for them. And there's really some things that can be done to avoid that. But yeah, I just want to name, like, your experience is so common with so many of the folks that I see and work with. Like, it's just, yeah, very relatable.
Very relatable.
Remember, like, one of the things that I realized once I went on this personal growth journey was, like, just one thing that I felt like I was doing was overextending myself. So instead of overextending myself, I called back my energy and I focused on one project at a time. So for me, that was like doing the laundry from start to finish, and not in the middle of it getting too distracted and picking up other projects and tasks along the way that would cause me to not finish my laundry, to not feel guilty about not doing that, and then, to feel guilty about not doing that, and then pick up these other things that I'm supposed to do and not even able to accomplish all those things, And so there's we are our own worst enemies, when it comes to burnout and overextending ourselves. And again, we need to be compassionate about that, just because we've been conditioned to be that way since we were growing up. At least for my family, they were always about making sure everyone is happy all the time, doing what needs to be done to please other individuals. Well, that usually means taking away the attention from yourself and the care that you need to be giving yourself, and then putting that all onto other individuals. So just depleting your energy as much as possible, not understanding how to bring that energy back to yourself, and just continue on life, like when your hands are like stretched and you're just getting pulled from side to side.
Absolutely. Well, and I would argue that it even starts before you're born. So there's this whole discussion about epigenetics, which is your predisposition based off of your encoding from it being in utero. So your mom's stress of trying to please everyone and make everyone happy was sort of ingrained into your nervous system before you were even born, right? And then her mom, right? Because think about, again, a woman is born with all the eggs she's ever going to have at birth, right? So it's like even your grandmother's stress about what she learned to do to survive and adapt to her environment. If she learned that pleasing others was going to help her to have more favor or more success or increase her survival odds, then that got passed down. Our nervous system is forming templates about what is safe and what is not safe. And it is determining how we believe our environment is safe or unsafe based off of information that you're learning from 0 to 7. So from 0 to 7, you're scanning your environment and you're looking for cues of safety and cues of danger. And that is encoded into your neuroception. Your neuroception is your ability to detect subconsciously, outside of your conscious awareness, if your environment is safe or unsafe. So right now, your neuroception is working for you to send you cues of safety or cues of danger. You're not thinking about it. You don't have to tell it to do that. It's reflexive.
It's kind of like when I'm walking down a hallway in my apartment complex. My body and my sensory reception that's coming off of my skin will pick up if the turn around the corner is going to be safe for me or not. Your cells are constantly picking up whether it's a safe situation or if it's an unsafe situation based on years and years and years of experience.
Yeah. And that happens 8.5 seconds before your thinking brain even has a chance to cap up. So your neuroception is really what is guiding you and informing you as to how you are going to be and operate in the world. And so when we have these templates and we have these core beliefs about I'm safer, I'm more loved, I have more belonging if I'm making everybody happier around me, that's coming from a very primal place. And so, yes, we can do some talk therapy around that, but we're really not addressing at the root what needs to be healed.
Man, I love the way that you talk, because you can tell the amount of time and studying. Same thing with like Nick. Like when you have people who are passionate about personal development and knowing the ins and outs of your life, it's so reflective in the way that you conversate with others. And this is going to be my gem for the day. We only have one body, we only have one mind. So take care of it and be intentional about how you shape it, because you can literally create your reality in the mind that you operate from. You can tell that both you and Nick have spent the time to curate not only the environment, but the mindset necessary to live life on your terms. I'm done.
I love it.
I love
Mic
it.
drop.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. But before we get off this podcast, tell us, like, how can we get out of burnout, Marga? Like, when we're in it, like, what are the steps, or what are some therapy things that we can do to help ourselves heal from burnout?
Well, again, I want folks to understand that a lot of the beliefs that you have that are driving you to burnout are formed and held in the wisdom of your neuroception, which means that we have to heal your physiology, not just the way that you're thinking about your problems or thinking about your burnout. So what that means is, structurally, we have to look at what your nervous system is reading as a threat. So that may be, you got to go work with a functional doctor or a physician to heal your hormones, to, clear any viruses or any, inflammation that is being detected by your nervous system. And I utilize a lot of bottom up approaches because that is what is trauma informed. So we're talking about healing the body and the nervous system and the physiology. We're somatically experiencing release and completion from these incomplete, suppressed emotions that are stuck in your body that are causing more inflammation to your nervous system. So a lot of times, again, when you have an experience, you learn early on that I have to detach from myself. I have to not pay attention to what I want or need. I have to over attune to somebody else. You learn that. But in that same process that you form that template, you're also having an incomplete, thwarted response to how you wanted to show up in that situation. I wanted to say, no, mom, I don't want to work that hard for the A. It doesn't matter to me. I wanted to say, stop. I wanted to say, no, thank you. I wanted to say, I don't want to do that, but I didn't get to. And when you have that thwarted, incomplete response that's stuck and held by the wisdom of your body, that is what drives those templates to continue to repeat and repeat and repeat, because we repeat what we can't complete.
Ooh, that's a bar.
That's a bar.
We will, and we'll continue to repeat it and repeat it, because our body, our authentic, wise self, is really trying to get back into alignment. It's really trying to say, will you choose me? Will you attune to me? And that is when we can make those completions and we can live in our alignment. That's when we can operate and, from freedom, from our authentic self.
That's it. I love that. And I think that developing those types of techniques for me a little bit, was, developing a little bit of a routine, and paying attention and just being more aware of myself, like, and what my emotions are. What am I mentally feeling? What am I physically feeling? It's something called MEPS: mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And every morning I spend about 5 minutes doing that. And I'm just checking in.
I love
that.
I'm trying to see, like, hey, am I anxious this morning? Am I feeling tired this morning? Okay, if I'm feeling that, then maybe I need to make sure at the end of the day I get in a little bit of self-care, so that I'm, a little bit more rested. And it helps me, when I understand what my emotions are currently, to better interact with other individuals that I'm going to be interacting with at work. Because if I'm knowing that I'm anxious, or I'm just last night I had a fight with my girlfriend or boyfriend or, partner, I need to make sure that I'm aware of that, so that I don't project that energy with other individuals. And maybe I need to take some time and be in my office for a little while on my own until I process that emotion, so that I'm better able to interact with other individuals. And so that's why mindfulness and just spending every morning 5-10 minutes doing something that's A, making you aware of how you're feeling, and B, doing something to help calm that fight or flight system. And for me, that's meditation. But for other people, that's like doing yoga, that's like going out for a walk. It's just about focusing that attention back into yourself and back into what your body and mind is telling you.
Absolutely.
And so making steps to go do that. Does it mean that you need to go switch your job because you're burnt out? No. It means that, hey, there are certain things that I need to call back into my own self. My energy is overextended currently. Is that because I'm working too much and checking my emails all the time and I'm just running around the hospital with my head cut off? Or is it because there's something at home that's going on and like, my child is sick and it's really weighing me down. My mom or dad is sick. Like for me, my dad had gotten really sick. My mom had passed away and there were so many things that happened that I didn't process at all. And I use work as an escape.
Distraction.
That distraction, leads to misalignment. And when you're misaligned, there's going to be, a lot of chaos that's going to show up in your life. And you can only lie to yourself so long. Eventually, there will be a moment where your foundation, topples.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love what you're sharing. Everything there, again, tactically and practically, if we can learn to map out and understand the states of our nervous system and when we're in fight or flight, that's critical. That's like step one. You got to notice when you're leaving neutral, when you're leaving homeostasis. If you can't detect that, it's going to be really hard for you to identify when to use a coping skill. So learning how to identify the states of your nervous system is like step one, and then like you say, like identifying what are my stressors, where am I misaligned, what do I need to feel safer, more grounded, more regulated, and then tuning into that. I teach my clients a number of somatic skills for that so that we can somatically, again, come back into connection with our body and physically release the stress. And that's physically and emotionally, right? But it has to come out of our body. Our body needs to experience that it's safe to release that. Otherwise, it stays stuck in our physiology. So everything that you shared, again, yes, double stamp. I co-sign that.
You're amazing. I'm about to ask you to be my therapist.
Let's go. Come on.
Amazing. And if other people are feeling the same way that I am, how can people get more information or look you up or do a consult online?
Yeah. So my website is businessofthriving.com.
Yes.
And that's where my burnout recovery coaching, information is on there. I am most active sharing information for free, hopefully of value to you on my Instagram platform. And so that's just my name, Monica Helvey, LMFT. And those are the two best ways to stay connected with me. I do have a monthly newsletter that goes out that just gives you some information about your nervous system and healing from burnout. So you can get on that email list if you go either to Instagram or to that website, Business of Thriving. I have a free burnout checklist, and that's also available on my website. And there's a link to that on Instagram. But that burnout checklist will help you to identify the different ways that burnout can show up mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And you can just self-assess in a couple minutes and really just see okay, if I'm checking a lot of these boxes, might be time to step back into alignment with myself.
Love it.
Look, just for those out there listening, going on a personal growth journey, it takes some work. These checklists and doing this type of stuff, there is some work involved. But aren't you worth it? Is it what you're trying to accomplish in life worth doing just a little bit of work? Just think about all the work that you do for other individuals, and just calling just maybe a couple percentages of that energy back into yourself and watching yourself blossom and grow. It's truly an incredible and beautiful journey, and there's steps that will help you get there. And Monica has laid out some great things for us today. We're really, really grateful to have you with us. And for those that want some more information, we'll have that down in the comment section. Until next time, peace.